Hello everyone, welcome to the class. I hope everyone is fine and doing well. So, in today's class, we are going to learn about menstrual cycle. So, we will be having discussion regarding menstrual cycle. Okay. So in today's class, we will see that what is definition of the menstrual cycle. We will see what are the phases which are involved in the menstrual cycle, that is beginning from the menstrual phase till the end of that is the luteal phase. And we will see what are the hormones which are responsible for this onset of this cycle. And we will also see at the end that so many different questions which are asked in the competitive exams. So we will solve all those also. Okay, so now let's begin this class by completely understanding the definition of menstrual cycle. So let's begin with definition. Okay, so what the definition of the menstrual cycle says? The definition is actually, it is the reproductive cycle seen in female primates. So let me write it down. What is the definition? It is reproductive cycle in female primates. Reproductive cycle in female primates. For example, monkeys, apes, and human being. Okay, so a very simple definition which says that reproductive cycle in female primates, example monkeys, apes, and human being. Okay, so the beginning of the first menstruation, which is seen at puberty, is known as menarche. Okay, so menarche, it is the time period, or it is at this stage when the first menstrual cycle begins. So the menarche, it actually begins at which age? That is puberty. So it is what? It is beginning of first menstruation. Okay, so menarche, it is the time period at which the beginning of the first menstruation which takes place at the puberty. Okay, so this menstrual cycle, it actually goes on repeating itself after 28 to 29 days. So the repetition of the cycle occurs after 28 or 29 days. Okay, so whatever the events which we will see in further class in further time. Okay, so the repetition of the cycle occurs after 28 to 29 days. So by this point we will have another definition of the menstrual cycle which says that, so we will write it as or. So what is another definition of the menstrual cycle which says that cycle of events starting from what? Starting from first menstruation, that was menarche. Cycle of events starting from what? Starting from one menstruation till the next one. So another definition says that the cycle of events starting from one menstruation till the next one is also called as menstrual cycle. So we have seen two definitions. The first definition, it says that the reproductive cycle in female primates, sample monkeys, apes, and human being. And another definition is the cycle of events. Okay, so the word events, it signifies what? There are so many different phases involved in it. Okay, we will see further that actually, what are all those events, or what are all those phases which are involved. The cycle of events starting from what? Starting from one menstruation till the next one. Okay, so this was the definition of the menstrual cycle. Now let's start understanding, what are all those events and what are the phases involved in menstruation. I hope you understood the definition very well. So the repetition, it begins after 28 to 29 days. Now we will see that which are the phases, the four phases in menstruation or menstrual cycle. Okay, so there are actually four phases, four important phases which are involved in this menstrual cycle. So now let's see. The first phase is actually the menstrual phase, or we can simply call it as menstruation. When actual bleeding starts, menstrual phase or the menstruation, and then it is followed by another phase which is the follicular phase, and another phase is ovulatory phase, and the fourth and the last phase is luteal phase, or we can also call it as secretory phase. This is also known by another name which is known as secretory phase. And the follicular phase, it is also known as follicular phase. It is also known by another name, I will tell you later on. Menstrual phase, or known as menstruation, follicular phase, and ovulatory phase, and the last one is the luteal phase or secretory phase. Now we will see okay, so follicular phase, it is also known as what? Proliferative phase. It is also known as proliferative phase. Okay, so the first one was the menstrual phase. Let me write it down again because I just left that name. Menstrual phase, follicular phase or proliferative phase, ovulatory phase, and the luteal phase, or also known as secretory phase. We will see each and every cycle in detail, and we will see diagrammatically that how actually the cycle goes on, and what are the hormones which are involved. So let me draw the diagram first. Okay, so this diagram is actually given in the NCERT. Let us try to understand it properly. What does this diagram actually want to say? So here we will see uh, the uterine activity, It is mentioned inside your NCRT book, uterine activity. And here we will see actually, ovarian activity. Whatever the activities are getting inside the ovaries. And here we will see the pituitary hormones. Okay. Whatever the activities which are going inside the uterus, here we will see the uterine activity. And in ovarian activity, we will see the ovarian hormones actually, which are the ovarian hormones responsible for it. So let me write it down here, ovarian hormones. In ovarian activity, we will see the ovarian hormones, and we will also see in ovaries itself, the development of the follicles are also going on. So we will see here the ovarian activities, and at the end, at the last, it is mentioned here the pituitary hormones. So which are the hormones responsible for the menstrual cycle? We will see all those things. Okay. Here are the days mentioned: 1, 3, 5, 9, and so on. So let me write it down in halfway so that I can save my space. '29. Okay. So inside this uterine activity, you will see such kind of diagrams. These are, the lining of the uterus. Okay. So now let's begin understanding actually how the menstrual cycle begins, what are the phases in it, and how actually the ovarian hormones, how actually the the pituitary hormones, they are, influencing the menstrual cycle. So in the uterine activity, from first to fifth, 3 to 5 days, it is known as menstruation, which last for what? 3 to 5 days. So the beginning of the cycle is menstruation, which lasts for how many days? For 3 to 5 days. So at this point of time, what will happen? The flow of blood, the blood starts flowing at this point of time. Okay. So the blood flows from the uterus towards the vagina at this point of time, which is known as menstruation, and it lasts for how many days? 3 to 5 days. So let me write it down here, every phase. So simultaneously, we will be understanding the phases as well. The menstruation phase. Okay, so the menstruation phase, it actually lasts for how many days? For 3 to 5 days. Okay, so what are the things actually happening in the menstruation? We will see that in menstruation, at this point of time, what is happening? The endometrial lining or the endometrium lining of what? Endometrium lining of uterus. Okay, so the endometrium lining of the uterus. So endometrium lining we have seen in our earlier class that actually endometrium lining, it is responsible for what? It is responsible for the implantation. So endometrium lining of the uterus, what will happen at menstruation? If fertilization does not occur, the endometrium lining of the uterus, what it will do? It breaks down. Okay, so the menstruation or the blood, it consists of what? It also consists of the endometrial lining of the uterus, which gets break down. Okay, so the breaking down of the endometrium lining of the uterus, it consists of blood and blood vessels getting breaking down. Okay, so in the menstruation phase, which lasts for how many days? For 3 to 5 days. At this point of time, the endometrium lining of the uterus and blood vessels, what it will do, it gets breakdown, and it gets formed in the form of what? In the form of blood, and it's get released out from the uterus towards the vagina. Okay, so the menstruation, it actually occurs if the fertilization, if there is no fertilization. Means what? The egg, the mature egg which has been released after the maturation of the Graafian follicle, whatever the ovum which was released, we have seen all these things in our earlier classes. The ovum which was released from the fallopian tube, it moves towards the uterus. And if it is not getting fertilized, what will happen? There will be no fertilization. So the egg, what it will do, in the form of the ovum, endometrium lining of the uterus and blood vessels, they will get breakdown, and what will happen? They will come out of the uterus in the form of blood. Okay, so no fertilization means what? So no fertilization, it is actually menstruation is the indication of no fertilization. And sometimes the menstruation in a mature female or at the puberty, it does not occur because of what? There are so many other reasons as well, like stress or other physical reasons. Okay, so stress and other physical reasons are also responsible for no menstruation. So no menstruation, it is caused by what? If there is no fertilization, no menstruation means what? No menstruation means fertilization. मतलब क्या है कि अगर fertilization होता है, means what? If fertilization takes place, then what will happen? Menstruation will not occur. And if the fertilization of the egg, it does not take place, what will happen? The menstruation will take place. So menstruation, it is actually the indicator whether the egg has been fertilized or the egg has not been fertilized. Okay, if the egg gets fertilized, then what will happen? It leads to pregnancy. So whatever the egg or the ovum which was released from the Graafian follicle, if it is getting fertilized, then the fertilization leads to pregnancy. And if the egg is not getting fertilized, it means no fertilization. What will happen? It will come out of the uterus, and it will, with endometrium lining of the uterus and blood vessels, it will break down, and it will come out of the vagina in the form of the blood. Okay. So this was about the menstruation phase, which lasts for how many days? For 3 to 5 days. Okay. After menstruation, another phase begins, which is known as what? It is known as follicular phase. It is known as follicular phase or proliferative phase. Okay, so after menstruation, another phase, follicular phase or the proliferative phase. Now the follicular phase, the word, it actually signifies what? What happens in this phase? Again, the primary follicles, whatever the primary follicles, they are stored inside each of the ovary. The further development of the follicles, that is a primary follicle, will turn into what? Secondary to tertiary, and tertiary to a mature Graafian follicle, and eventually another egg would be released. Okay, so the follicular phase, at this phase, what will happen? Development of follicles. Which last for how many days? 7 to 14 days. Okay, so the development of the follicles actually happen at this point of time. Now let me make you understand by this, by drawing a diagram. What will happen here? Inside the ovary, whatever the primary follicles were present, what they will do? Here actually it is a primary follicle. Okay, now this primary follicle, it will slowly get transformed into what? Secondary follicle. And secondary follicle, so it is a primary follicle, and it is what? Secondary follicle. And secondary follicle leads to what? Tertiary follicle. And tertiary follicle, it leads to mature Graafian follicle. Let me okay. So at this point of time, the tertiary follicle, when it turns into the Graafian follicle, and Graafian follicle, it leads to what? Ovulation. Means what? The egg is released out. Okay. And actually the ovulation, it actually takes place at the 14th day of the menstrual cycle. Okay. So after the menstruation, what will happen? Again the cycle, again the primary follicle, the primary, the ovum or the egg which was surrounded by the primary follicle, it again starts developing. It's another level of the follicle, that is a primary follicle will eventually it turns into the secondary, tertiary, and mature Graafian follicle, and ovulation takes place. Okay. So the ovulation actually, the mature Graafian follicle, it ruptures at which day? At 14th day, and the release of the mature ovum or the egg takes place. Now let me draw the ovarian hormone which is responsible for this. So let me make you understand actually which are the ovarian hormones. There are two main ovarian hormones. Which are they? Progesterone and estrogen. Okay. So the two ovarian hormones which are responsible for the development of the follicles, progesterone and estrogen. Okay. So ovarian hormones, progesterone and estrogen. At this point of time, the hormone estrogen, it actually surge at the 14th day, and another hormone, progesterone, it is actually secreted by, the progesterone, it is actually secreted by what? It is secreted by the corpus luteum. So progesterone hormone, it is having a less level of this in at this point of time. It increases at follicular phase. Okay. And now for the development of the follicles, the hormones, that is luteinizing hormone and follicular stimulating hormone, FSH, and LH. Okay, which are these two hormones? This red one is actually LH, which is luteinizing hormone, and this black one is actually FSH, which is follicular stimulating hormone. Follicular stimulating hormone. Okay. So at the onset of the menstrual cycle, for the development of the follicles, what will actually happen? LH and FSH, these two are, the hormones which are actually secreted by the pituitary gland. So LH and FSH, they are known as gonadotropin hormones, or the gonadotropin releasing hormones. So LH and FSH, they attain the luteinizing hormone, it attains peak level at which point of time? You will see that it is actually attaining its peak level at the 14th day. Means what? LH and FSH, The luteinizing hormone, the surge in this hormone, that is a luteinizing hormone, surge in the luteinizing hormone, what will happen? The surge in the luteinizing hormone, it leads to what? It leads to the rupture of the mature Graafian follicle, which eventually leads to the ovulation at the 14th day. Okay. So LH and FSH, follicular stimulating hormone, it is responsible for what? It is responsible for the development of the follicles, and luteinizing hormone, it leads to what? The surge in the luteinizing hormone, it leads to the rupture of the Graafian follicle. Okay, so the secretion of, let me write it down here. Actually, the estrogen, it is secreted by what? Estrogen, it is secreted by the developing follicles. Okay. Primary follicle to secondary, secondary to tertiary, tertiary to Graafian. So this developing follicles, what they will do? They will actually secrete what? They will actually secrete the estrogen hormone, which are secreted by the follicles. So this estrogen, the peak in the estrogen level, it actually takes place at what time? At the 14th day. So the peak in the estrogen level, it stimulates what? Peak in the estrogen level, it stimulates our pituitary to secrete more. It stimulates the pituitary gland to secrete what? To secrete more LH, that is luteinizing hormone. So estrogen having a very important work to stimulate our, or to to provide a kind of information to our pituitary gland that what you have to do. Actually here you can see that FSH is having less quantity in comparison to the LH. So decreasing the level of the FSH and increasing the level of the LH. So estrogen, it works, so it provides a kind of message to the pituitary that actually we are fully mature. What we have to do? What you have to do? You have to increase the level of the LH, that is a luteinizing hormone. Then and then only what will happen? The mature Graafian follicle, it will burst, and it will the release of the ovum or the mature egg will takes place. So the estrogen secreted by the follicles, this estrogen, it attains its peak level at which day? At the 14th day. And what it is doing? Actually, it is providing a message to what? Message to our pituitary gland to do what? To increase the level of the luteinizing hormone, that is LH, and decreasing the level of the FSH. What it will do? As the LH surge will takes place, leading to what? LH surge. Okay. So LH surge leads to what? LH surge, it leads to rupture of Graafian follicle. Okay, so LH surge, it leads to the rupture of the Graafian follicles. This was all the things. The pituitary hormone LH and FSH. First, FSH and LH, they were having the same level in at the starting, and eventually they will increase their level at what time? When the mature Graafian follicle is ready to rupture and the ovulation will take place. Now, at this point of time, you can see, let me write it down here actually. This is estrogen, and this red one is progesterone. Now you can see, when the level of the estrogen hormone, it is high, the progesterone is actually low in comparison to the estrogen. Why? Because progesterone, it is a hormone which is actually secreted by what? It is actually secreted by the corpus luteum. So until and unless the formation of the corpus luteum has not taken place, how the level of the progesterone will increase? So after the ovulation, or after the rupture of the Graafian follicle, what will happen? The level of the estrogen is getting decreased because of maturation of the follicles has taken place. Now what will happen? The egg will actually it will pass it will move towards for the fertilization, that is from where? From fallopian tubes towards the uterus, and uterus towards the vagina, if the fertilization does not take place. Okay. So this mature, after ovulation, the Graafian follicle, the mature Graafian follicle, what will happen? The fate of this mature Graafian follicle is corpus luteum. Okay. So eventually, the formation of the corpus luteum. What are these? These are corpus luteum. Okay, so this corpus luteum are actually having they are what they do. This corpus luteum actually they secrete what? They secrete progesterone. So you will see in the diagram that the level of the progesterone, it actually increases at what point of time? When there is formation of the corpus luteum. Why? Because the progesterone is actually secreted by the corpus luteum. So the level of this hormone progesterone increases as corpus luteum secretes. Now this progesterone, let me write it down here. The third phase, it was actually, let me raise it out. So the third phase, it was the ovulatory phase, in which the ovulation occurred, that is the 14th day. Okay, in the ovulatory phase, we have seen how actually the ovulation takes place. Ovulation, that is the release of egg or ovum. Release of the ovum takes place, and at this point of time, which hormone is responsible for the rupture? That is LH. So surge in the LH, surge in the luteinizing hormone leads to the ovulation, and somewhere FSH is also responsible. Okay, and estrogen. We need to remember that which are the hormones, they are acting at which phase. At the ovulatory phase, the surge in the LH, FSH and the estrogen. Estrogen, it is an ovarian hormone which is secreted by the follicles, and LH and FSH, they are secreted by pituitary. Okay, so ovulatory phase. After ovulatory phase, now we are seeing the follicular luteal phase. The fourth phase is luteal phase. Okay, in luteal phase, the mature Graafian follicle, it is getting converted into what? So in this phase, what is actually happening? The mature Graafian follicle, it is actually turning into corpus luteum. Okay, and which is the hormone which is released by the corpus luteum? Progesterone. So the level of the progesterone will increase. Okay, so the progesterone hormone which is secreted by whom? The corpus luteum. Okay, now what is the function of this progesterone which is secreted by the corpus luteum? So the progesterone is having the role of maintaining what? Maintaining endometrium lining of uterus. Okay, so the corpus luteum, it secretes what? Progesterone. This progesterone hormone, it is actually responsible for what? Maintaining the endometrium lining of the uterus. Okay, so we have seen that at the menstruation, the breakdown of this endometrium lining takes place. So the breakdown of the endometrium lining takes place only if there is no fertilization. Okay, and if the fertilization takes place, what will happen? It is actually maintained, and the proliferation and the proper development of this lining, it happens only because of the hormone progesterone. Okay, so if suppose the fertilization does not takes place, so what will happen? The ovum, it will get released out from the vagina. So what will happen? Even the corpus luteum, it will eventually get degenerated. So if no fertilization नहीं हुआ तो क्या होगा? If there is no fertilization, degeneration of corpus luteum. Corpus luteum का degeneration हो जाएगा. ठीक है. फर्टिलाइजेशन नहीं हुआ तो डीजेनरेशन ऑफ द कॉर्पस ल्यूटियम का डीजेनरेशन हो जाएगा, और जैसे ही कॉर्पस ल्यूटियम का डीजेनरेशन होगा तो क्या हो रहा है, यहाँ पे हम देख सकते हैं, वी कैन सी वेरी क्लियरली हियर, एक्चुअली द लेवल ऑफ दिस हार्मोन दैट इज अ प्रोजेस्टेरॉन इज गोइंग डाउन। मीन्स व्हाट, कॉर्पस ल्यूटियम ही डीजेनरेट हो गया तो कॉर्पस ल्यूटियम है नहीं, देन हु विल बी रेस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर सिक्रेटिंग एंड मेंटेनिंग द एंडोमेट्रियल लाइनिंग? So the progesterone level, it gets decreased, and if there is no progesterone, what will happen? The breaking down, that is a breakdown of endometrium lining, breakdown of endometrium. Okay, so this is all these are the phases, and this is the diagram which I have explained you very well. We have seen the two hormones, pituitary hormones and the ovarian hormones, and at the end the luteal phase. Okay, this was all about the menstrual cycle. Now I hope you understood very well that actually which are the phases and how, which are the hormones responsible, how actually the maturation of the follicles takes place. Now let's see some sort of questions which was there in previous year, and some more questions which has the higher probability of getting asked in the exams. So I hope you understood very well the topic menstrual cycle. We have seen the definition, that actually what is definition of the menstrual cycle. We have seen two definitions, that is it is the reproductive cycle which is seen in the female primates. We have seen another definition, that is cycle of events starting from one menstruation till the next one. We have also seen what, menarche and menopause. Okay, menarche and menopause, we have seen this. We have seen the four important phases which occur in the menstrual cycle. Which are they? The four important. Let's take a sort of revision, then we will start solving the question. We have seen the menstrual phase, then follicular phase or proliferative phase, and third one, ovulatory phase, and fourth one, luteal phase. Okay, so these four are the very important. We have to remember menstrual phase, it lasts for 3 to 5 days. These days are important, it may get asked in exam. Follicular phase from 5 to 14 days. Ovulatory phase, which is actually happens at the 14th day, and the luteal phase. Okay, and we have to remember that yes, fifth point which what we have to remember is menopause and menarche. We have also seen certain hormones. Which are they? We have seen set of two hormones, that is first one is the hormone which is released by the pituitary, that is known as gonadotropin releasing hormone. Actually the gonadotropin releasing hormone, it is a hormone which is secreted by what? It is secreted by hypothalamus. This all things we have learnt in our previous class, so I don't need to write it down again and again. Actually hypothalamus, GnRH is, and this hypothalamus gland, it is this hormone is actually secreted by the hypothalamus, and it stimulates to what? This actually stimulates the pituitary to secrete what? To secrete LH and FSH, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And another hormone, another set of hormone, ovarian hormones, we have seen. Which are the ovarian hormones? Estrogen. Remember that this estrogen is actually secreted by what? Follicles. Okay, and another hormone, progesterone, and this progesterone is actually secreted by what? corpus luteum. Okay, and this cycle, it goes on and it repeats after 28 or 29 days. Okay, see, so this all phases, menopause, menarche, certain hormones, and so all this thing we have seen in our class. And now let's solve some sort of questions. So this question was actually asked in the exam AIPMT. At that time it was AIPMT. So AIPMT 2009. The question says that which of the following is most likely a reason? Which of the following is most likely a reason for not occurring the regular menstruation cycle in females? The question is, again I will read. If I will write it out, it will take so much time. So let me read it out. Which of the following is most likely a reason for not occurring regular menstruation cycle? So what actually they are asking, not occurring a regular menstruation cycle. Regular menstruation cycle नहीं हो रहा है in females में, तो कौन सा ऐसा reason है? Okay. So the first option is actually the maintenance of increased concentration of sex hormones in bloodstream. No, this is not the option. Maintenance of hypertrophic endometrial lining. No, this is not the answer. Retention of the corpus luteum. No. Fertilization of the ovum. Yes. So the answer is actually the fertilization of the ovum. Okay. This question was asked in the year 2009. Another question from AIPMT, it was asked in the year 2006. It says that withdrawal of which of the following hormone is immediate cause of menstruation? So what is the question is actually immediate cause of menstruation. Immediate cause of menstruation. Menstruation का immediate cause पूछा है. Withdrawal of which of the following hormone? Withdrawal of which of the following hormone is immediate cause of menstruation? So options are progesterone, LH, luteinizing hormone, estrogen, and fourth option is FSH, that is follicular stimulating hormone. So question says that withdrawal of which of the following hormone is immediate cause of menstruation? This question was asked in 2006. Okay, so the answer is progesterone. Okay, so the withdrawal of progesterone, it is the immediate cause of menstruation, because as the level of the progesterone, it will decrease at the end, that is at the 28 to 29 days. Okay, so after that what will happen? After that the another cycle, that is the menstruation phase, it again begins. So withdrawal of progesterone. Okay, this was a very good question. Another question is endometrium is lining of. Question hai endometrium is lining of what? Endometrium, it is lining of what? Very easy question. Bladder. Options are bladder. Second is vagina. Third is uterus. And fourth one is oviduct. So endometrium, it is lining of what actually? It is lining of uterus. It's very simple question. Okay. Another question is release of mature ovum from Graafian follicle.